The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily represent those of this station or its management.
It's a new day, always a new time, and there's a new way, gonna live my life party on.
Well, good morning and welcome to Cover Your Assets. We've got Todd Rooker, Jason Walgrave, and Craig Nestor all in studio, and you can join us as well, 855-835-8500. That's 855-835-8500. And guys, coveryourassets21.com, a great place to swing by and get to know you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I got some deep fried coffee from the fair.
On a stick. So, guys, we've got a really interesting topic coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about bankruptcy, but by way of introduction, Craig, explain what you do.
Well, it's a very unforgiving economy out there, and right now people are looking for some solutions that, well, they just haven't been out there as they are now. What I mean by that is a year ago, 2 years ago, how people navigated through things are different. We don't have the equity in our home. We're not able to borrow against that equity as we used to in the past. So now we're upside down, which means we can't sell. So if people are in trouble and they want to just downsize with a plan, sometimes that's hard to do, especially if the bank's not going to cooperate. So it's very difficult to borrow. It's very difficult to sell, and we're up against a recessionary job market. So it's tough to get out there, get the resume out there, and really try to bring in more income. So we take this family and we walk them through all their options that they have right now to navigate their family through this time.
Okay, and you do specialize in foreclosure defense. Jason Walgrave.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. You've got a really interesting kind of double-sided place to your real estate business.
Absolutely. I'm a broker with RE/MAX. My expertise lie in short sales and investment properties. So our number one goal is to sit down with our clients and customers and determine, show them what their options are. So if it's one road, we're going to help with that. If it's another road, we're going to do that.
Absolutely. And we're going to get a lot more into short sales downsizing with a plan as we go on. So Todd Rooker, you've got the pleasure of bringing in one of our great partners today. And what do you do too?
My business is about strategic planning and crisis. And while most of the people who are engaged in helping consumers tend to have one particular area that they're disciplined in, my job is to know a bit about all of it and bring it all together in a more cohesive plan. So I have to understand bankruptcy, I have to understand tax implications, I have to understand credit, I have to understand all about how the bank will treat you and function, and how to position you strategically to get you through a negative situation or a compromised financial position, minimize the damage, and then get you back on your feet as quickly as possible on the other side. So I'm dealing with people who often are strategic planners, and in today's economy, as Craig has said, these are folks who not in this lifetime did they ever think they'd find themselves in this position, and our economy has generated a whole lot of people who've been solid and stable for years and now find themselves in a compromised position. Today, one of the professionals that I'm going to be introducing here is somebody who specializes in bankruptcy. This is an attorney, David Kingsbury, and he is phenomenal at bankruptcy. And I'm going to say this over and over again because it's the absolute point of fact truth. I don't deal with amateurs who are just getting started in their careers, because when people come to me and they pay me the billable hours simply for the advice, I don't do free consultations. So when somebody comes to me, when they get a referral, it isn't somebody's name that I got from the bulletin board. It is somebody that I know to be excellent and somebody who is top shelf above and beyond the other folks who are out there. And that's why we work with the very best, because our clients expect to get that type of referral. So I'm going to be talking with David, as we all are today, about bankruptcy and the ins and outs. But the one thing that is important to note about bankruptcy is that it absolutely can be used as a strategic plan within an overall recovery process. It may not necessarily be your first option, but as I always like to say, if you've got debt, you've got three options. Number one, pay all the money. Number two, negotiate for a percentage. And lastly, file bankruptcy to push your creditors back, and potentially you may be better off on the other side. Where a person lands, that's their choice. But bankruptcy, if you're able to qualify for bankruptcy, can be one of the best pieces of leverage you have to get deep settlements and negotiations. And on the other hand, if the bank says, you know what, screw you, we're not taking your settlement amount, well, then you really do have to be positioned for bankruptcy, because it may actually be the direction that you go. So, David, I'd like to introduce you. I want to thank you for taking the time to be on our show. Tell us a little bit about what makes your bankruptcy practice unique as compared with what's out there.
Well, good morning, Todd, and thanks everybody for having me a guest on your show here today. It's a real pleasure to come and talk to your audience. What makes My practice unique, I guess. I specialize in Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 bankruptcies for consumers and small businesses. I've been in practice since 1990. It's been strictly what I do since probably about 1992. We have a lot of folks, and I'm sure we're going to get into this in the discussion. You folks will have some questions to lead into this, but it's been a horrible economy. We've seen a lot of changes in the kind of clientele that we've been seeing, and it's busy, so.
I would have to agree with that. The consumers who we're talking to today, as I kind of led into, is interesting that we've got people who've never missed a payment prior to this, and now all of a sudden they're considering bankruptcy. Much of that has to do, would you agree, David, with the declining real estate market and the horrendous amounts of debt that can happen when you see 30 and 50% real estate reductions. You can have people who had $5 and $10 million loans, and overnight that equity position erodes 30%, and all of a sudden they've got $5 million worth of debt. And although they may have made their payments up to this time, the bank calls the note due, asks them to perform on that dollar amount, and there's simply no way to do it. And because these people have never missed a payment in their lives, they're ready to be institutionalized, and they have nothing else to do but to file bankruptcy because they sure don't have the assets to liquidate and repay that debt.
That's completely true. The housing market has generated a new type of client for us, and it's true. A lot of them haven't missed a payment before, and that's one of the big misconceptions for people coming to file bankruptcy is they think they have to be behind on payments, but they're not. You have to be insolvent, basically, where you can't meet your obligations. If you take a look at your balance sheet and you look at your assets versus your liability, you can't make it. The liabilities outweigh the assets. You're insolvent. You're a candidate for bankruptcy. Whether or not it makes sense for you, that's a whole another conversation. But the folks, the example that you brought up, $5 million worth of assets, that's not a typical bankruptcy client for us. Generally speaking, usually it's homeowners trapped in a property they can't get out of. We see a lot of people that want to save their properties because they've raised their families there. Their kids are in school. They don't want to move. But we get the other side of the coin, too. We get a lot of real estate investors who had done very well in the past, but the market's just not there. And it bleeds into all types of different things. The people that dig the holes, put in cabinets, put in floors, put in carpet. It just spread across the whole economy.
Well, what is interesting is if you went back 5 years ago and a consumer went to a bankruptcy attorney, if they'd not missed a payment at this point, the bankruptcy attorney might have questioned why they were even there. Today, they understand why that is, because today there are people who've not missed a single payment and actually may be in front of a bankruptcy attorney looking at their options. And a few years ago, that never happened. I mean, people would go to the nth degree before they even considered it. Today, it's a little bit different. One of the things that I find to be a real misconception about bankruptcy is people believe that it is because of the debt, the amount of debt that they have, that they qualify for bankruptcy. Now, the amount of debt that they have may justify why they're here and why they're considering bankruptcy, but that doesn't actually determine whether or not they can qualify for bankruptcy. Would you talk a little bit about that, David?
I certainly can. As far as the type of folks that come in the past, it was typically folks that there was a lot of equity in their homes. They ran up a lot of credit card debt. Interesting, when I first started practicing back in the early 1990s, the decade prior to that was really the on-rise of credit cards. Before that, there was Diners Club, there was American Express, but that was about it. Then all of a sudden, everybody started getting credit card applications. So that was the thing then. Now it's it is quite different as far as qualifying for bankruptcy. Your comment about the debt is insightful. A lot of people come in and they say, "This is what I've got," and they think that has a lot to do with it, and it really doesn't. There are the four basic analysis that I make when I take a look at somebody in a bankruptcy situation is two of them are income. The first one is means testing. Means testing is the new legislation came about in 2005. It's historical. What'd you make in the last 6 months? Divide it by 6. See whether or not you qualified. Disposable
income. Well, let's do this, David. Let's pick this back up because this is a big, big topic. This is Cover Your Assets, 855-835-8500. That's 855-835-8500. Jump online to coveryourassets21.com. Jason Walgrave, Todd Rooker, Craig Nestor will be back along with the Kingsbury Law Office.
AM 1280 The Patriot.
Paying tax.